Sure, yeah.
Let's go for it. What do we call the roll? Well, why don't we start with pledge of allegiance? Senator Kelly, you lead us, please.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Morning, everybody, and thank you for being part of our meeting this morning. We have a full crowd on Zoom, I see. Thank you all for attending virtually. Want to do the roll call?
Kaplan,
Here.
Garcia, Geller,
Here.
Goldberg,
Here.
Portland, Lincoln, Pates,
Here.
Corradino, Kerr,
Here.
Gilbert, Kaufman,
Here.
McGee, Rodriguez, here, Eugene,
Here.
Davila, here, Wynn,
Here.
Villaboy.
Here.
We have we need an in-person forum.
Correct.
Of three.
Correct.
So we have two. Senator Geller and I are members of the executive committee. As the acting chair of the executive committee, it is responsibility and prerogative. You will accept the designation to appoint Commissioner Rodriguez and Councilmember Burr as acting members of the executive committee for purposes of today's agenda.
If you need a motion, I'll make it, but I don't think you did.
I think that's good enough. You okay?
Okay.
You're good?
Please.
Thank you. Welcome.
Thanks.
Okay, so we have an in-person call. Let's get to it then. First item is the town plan amendments.
Proposed City of Key Colony Beach 2501 ER, City of Oakland Park 2501 ESR.
Motion to approve. Second.
Okay, properly before us, we'll open the public hearing. Anyone wish to speak on these proposed amendments? Anyone online? Hearing none, we'll close the public hearing. Any other discussion? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The proposed amendments are approved. Second, the adopted amendments.
City of Fort Lauderdale 2402 ESR, City of Fort Lauderdale 2403 ESR, City of Fort Lauderdale 2501 ESR, City of Hialeah 2401 ESR.
Can I get a motion?
Move approval. Second.
Properly before us, we'll open the public hearing. Anyone present that wishes to speak to any of these amendments? Anyone online have anything to say? Hearing none, we'll close the public hearing. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Items approved. Next. The City Park, Parkland, DRI. I understand we have, Mr. Burkow is here.
Yes.
You want me
You can come up.
Oh.
Yes, sure.
Would you,
I could just do a real quick,
Review.
little summary, yes.
what we're about today?
Yes, thank you so much. Right before us is the City Park from GRI 380.03 agreement. And this agreement, 032, pardon me. This agreement is brought for you today because we're literally just extending the expiration date of the agreement. This agreement was previously approved in a council meeting back in 2021. So again, it's just the process has taken longer than we thought, and so it's necessary to extend the agreement to continue the DRI process forward.
Question.
Yes, sir.
So this is not, I know we had one last remaining DRI that was somewhat controversial. This is not that one.
This, well, there's only one last remaining, you're right, this was grandfathered in 2018 when the. you know,
The
laws were
legislature
changed
took
up.
away our authority.
Right,
to
exactly. So,
Yeah.
well, and then Mr. Burkhardt can speak to it, so the DRI process, oh, Senator Garcia.
Good morning.
Welcome, nice to see you here. So, the city, you know, the city park DRI is a large development regional impact, and it certainly will be subject to great conversation moving forward. In the DRI process, what the council does is to help facilitate a process to identify the impacts of the proposed DRI as well as mitigation. We do that working in partnership with the applicant and regional stakeholders such as Miami-Dade County, the Department of Transportation, South Florida Water Management District, et cetera, et cetera. And we have been going through this process now for close to 3 years, pursuant to a development agreement that was reached again back in 2021, 22.
2021, November.
Yeah.
2021.
And so we have been working diligently in the process. We are getting ready. We have just reached, I think, agreement on, or just about to reach agreement on the methodology that will be used moving forward to assess these impacts. And we just are moving the process forward.
See, I think that answers my question. So right now, we're just extending while we complete our review.
Correct.
And I have
Mhm.
one additional question with this one for the attorney. With the presence of Senator Garcia, I believe we now have not executive already, but we have a regular quorum in person of the SFRPC. Is that correct?
That's correct. We have 2, 3, 4, yeah, we have 5.
An agenda package for the senator, please.
In that case, Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
if Mr. Burkow wants to speak, I welcome it, but otherwise I think it's true.
Let's get a second on that.
Second.
Okay, and Mr. Burkow, you made the trip. Would you?
I have made the trip, if there's a consensus for approval, I don't want to stand in the way. I know you've got a short agenda today, and I know that that you'd like to get out of here as soon as possible, so. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Quick summary question. My understanding is that the nature of this agreement is really to memorialize procedures and standards that will apply to our ultimate review. And that would also pertain to the county and the state agency.
That is correct. This agreement basically sets the rules of the game. It does not have, the application itself is authorized by the statute, so regardless of your views of the application, this amendment should be approved so that we all know we're playing from the same playbook, working from the same playbook, and we've agreed upon the applicable statutes and regulations of the process.
Thank you.
If I could, I would just like to mention for the board that this agreement has been already reviewed by Sam and terms to form and also by the Florida Department of Commerce. They've also agreed to the extension. So they want to sign last. So here we have it.
So we have a motion and a second. It's properly before us. We've heard from the attorney. Any other questions or discussion or comments? Okay, for the extension of this agreement, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Thank you very much.
Thank you,
Really
Mr.
appreciate
Burkow.
it.
Thank you. And then now we're on to our last agenda item.
And that's you.
That's me. So we've been fortunate to have had a working partnership with the Department of Transportation District 6 for the last close to 5 years, much through the efforts of ex-official member Wynn, who helped secure this working relationship for us. And this was before you now is an extension of that contract.
Okay.
That's it. And so we help the department with project review, we help facilitate. We basically are added on staff for them to help them move forward and work.
So this is just by way of report, we require no action.
No, we need to approve the contract,
Okay.
and it's
move-
already been reviewed by
Move
the
approval.
council.
Okay, is that a motion? Second? Any other discussion?
Just real quick on that.
Yes, sir.
And I'm glad Commissioner Garcia is here for this. Just so everybody knows, with FDOT and at Septec, they were asking for the alignment of the rail on US 27,
Mhm.
going from Miami-Dade through Broward up to Palm Beach. And it's going to be, discussed at Septec on May 16th.
Oh, good.
What we tried to do was align the railing with landfills. So that for Miami-Dade, you're taking all your trash up that way. This would allow for the trash going from Miami-Dade and Broward to go up US 27 and touch on both the Okeechobee and the other landfill. I don't know how much Miami-Dade is to be told. That's why I want you to know, because that's gonna be brought up at Septec. And if you think it needs any other alignment, I think we got it pretty good, but you may want to take a look at it. And before it goes to Septec.
No, I appreciate that. I'll look at it and I'll take it back to the county itself, but I personally think that we should be responsible for our own trash instead of hauling it out somewhere else.
Yeah.
So we believe in the environment and we believe in the environment across the board, not shipping it to someone else. That's just my personal feelings about it, but I appreciate the fact that you're looking into that you guys are looking into that, because it makes it easier. If that is the route that Miami-Dade County is going to take, so I appreciate that. I'll follow up with.
Yeah,
with you afterwards.
it gives us options.
It does.
I totally agree with your sentiment on that. I think we see eye to eye on that, but right now there's an awful lot going up there, and until we build some facilities, we'll still be.
Thank you for that.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, question.
Yes, sir.
I normally can't ask Commissioner Barrett, but he said on the same words. In reference to that, what is the ultimate route? Are they planning on building rail line basically to get to Okeechobee? Remember, I used to represent Henry County in the Senate, so I'm pretty familiar with that area.
You connect with the CSX, and then you go spur. Waste Management is building a spur over to Okeechobee now,
Okay.
but there's also another one up that way.
Because my question was whether or not we're gonna have to build something through the middle of the Everglades, which
No.
I don't think is a good idea.
No, we're not. No. But you would be right on the edge of it. US 27 is right on the edge of it.
Right, but so to connect to Okeechobee, is there an existing CSX that goes into Okeechobee County?
Yeah.
Okay, so
There were some.
where would they make the connection?
It's on
What
the south of
we
the
would
lake.
build,
It's south of the lake.
like South Bay?
Yeah, something like that. And that's why it was, why I was mentioning the alignment. They had asked, what alignment do we think would make the most sense? And that one seems to make the most sense.
Okay.
But it will be brought up, Septec, and all three counties will have a chance to discuss it.
Okay.
When is that coming up?
May 16th.
May 16th.
Is it in Miami-Dade this time?
No, I think it's here.
In Broward?
I think so.
In this office?
Maybe.
Well, you're welcome to be in this office, but I think the last Septec meeting was
I
like.
think it's at the, I think it's at the
Yeah,
NPO.
it must be at the FTO.
It doesn't say, but it doesn't say.
Yeah. Next.
Yes.
Okay, in Ray garbage, excuse me, solid waste, Senator Garcia. While I agree with you, unless your politics in Dade are different than they are here in Broward, I don't think that we have, I mean, right now, it seems like the general public wants the, some of you may have heard me refer to the services ferry before. That's the way that you can fund services without taxes that so many people seem to believe in. And that can only be done with the services ferry. Then, of course, there's the dirty cousin of the services ferry, which is the garbage ferry. And the garbage ferry is the one that once they pick up the solid waste, she waves her wand and it disappears without having to put it anywhere. That seems to be the political consensus in Broward. I am not sure that we have the votes. I don't think we do to do much to create a new solid waste location, nor do we have the land to do that
Constraint.
in Broward. So my suspicion, and the people that keep saying that they want zero waste, I have no idea what they're talking about, because that's not possible. I mean, they keep saying, oh, it'll happen and we should compost. You know, you can do that maybe in a town of 5,000, 10,000, where you can find land to do, but we don't have the land here to do that, and maybe we get to 70%, which is about as good as any place in the world gets. So I ultimately think reluctantly, we're gonna end up politically sending it to Okeechobee or someplace else, which is not what we should be doing, but is probably what I think we will end up doing.
One thing you may want to know about is we have just bifurcated our landfill. We're not sending any organics there anymore. Waste management, and you all deal with them. They are
Everybody
putting
does.
together an entire composting area for all organics to reduce all the methane out of landfills.
In Okeechobee.
In Okeechobee. That's, you guys have more land than we have in Broward. But that is one of those reasons why you may want to go out of the county. Because they're gonna be using hundreds of acres to do that. You can't, it's hard to do that anywhere near urban without some kind of smell. So, I mean, if you start thinking of dividing your garbage from organics to municipal solid waste, then you've got a.
I just think, we're having this conversation about solid waste. The biggest problem that we have in our communities is the lack of education, I think. And what do? I think even when it comes to our recyclables, half of them, if not more, end up in a landfill anyway because they're contaminated. So
Are you planning on going single stream, double stream, or more?
listen, right now in the county, we haven't been able to settle as to what we're gonna do with the incinerator that burnt down.
I know.
You know, it's just, to me, it's been 2 years later and everyone keeps on kicking the can down the road. You know, there is some lands that are available that we can do it. This is where I find it hypocritical when we talk about the environment, protecting the environment, but yet it's okay to protect our environment, but not someone else's environment. So this is where I think, for me, you know, I think waste to energy is the way to go. I've seen some of these plants. The former plant that we had made no sense. I guess it smelled and so forth, but the technology that exists right now, it reduces the gas, it reduces the smell, and we get something for that waste. So this is where I'm trying to push, but I agree with you. I don't know if the political will is in Dade County right now with it, and I'm hoping that we can try to change that, because there is some lines that we can do it. I think at some point it will be great to see our communities collaborate a little bit better, because we can try to pull some of these resources.
Right.
And it will cost less for all of us, Dade, Broward, and Palm Beach, and even Monroe. I just don't know how we get there.
Waste to energy, we're running out of room for ash. We have what, 15 years left? Or something like that. We're just running out of room even to put the ash, because when you burn it, you reduce it by what, 80 or 90%, but you still have the ash.
Just so you know, today, a white paper was released in Broward on waste energy. And all of the support documents that you may want to
Look, I didn't know that, so
yeah,
appreciate
so it's
that.
really good. They've done, our consultants have been looking at it for months and months. They pulled all the articles, ones that would make sense for our two counties. For Broward County, by the way, both. And it gives the kind of documentation, I think, that if you're wanting to give it to environmentalists, they would actually feel better about it. It gives that kind of, particularly with regard to health, all those kind of things. It gives a large spectrum of ideas.
If there are people that will believe anything, there's a lot that don't. Chairman Mayor Fur is the county commission's rep to the Solid Waste Authority. I'm the alternate, and he has been doing just an outstanding job. And I think the two of you can talk, providing it's not an SFRPC business, you're not. So the two of you can talk.
I'll get
Or I can
that
talk to you.
too. I'll send it to Israel. She can send it to us.
That would be really,
I'd like to see that as well.
well,
You can distribute.
if I could.
Yeah. It's all public document.
Something?
Yeah, please.
So I just want to let you know that we had a really good staff level conversation with Miami-Dade County Solid Waste Management staff, Broward County, also Todd Story, and also Palm Beach County. So we just, just trying to talk about what are the issues that we need to be working on together. So I expect that that's gonna continue forward. There's already enhanced sharing of information. I also want to remind the board, you may not have noticed it, but the Treasure Coast is actually sponsoring a trip to Palm Beach County to the waste to energy plant there. I think most of you may have seen it already, but if there's any members online that are interested in that, it's gonna be on the 16th, which unfortunately conflicts with CEFTEC. But that's still an invitation that's open. They just need an RSVP by May 5th. I don't know if you might be.
I think I'd be interested.
Bear in mind, our county.
On the 16th of May. Pardon me?
That can't be a sunshine meeting because there's not anybody there keeping minutes. Meaning that you can't have more than one person from the SFRPC
Mhm.
there if they're attending as an SFRP, and I'll ask our attorney on that. But it can't, by the nature, it cannot be a sunshine meeting,
The treasure, yeah, it's Treasure Coast.
right? Well, they're probably violating, because I wanted to do that and an orator, Sammy told us we couldn't do that because it would, yeah, you can't take minutes.
Let me know if you would
Yeah,
like to come.
I'd be interested. I just checked my calendar, so on May 16th.
Okay, so I'll coordinate
Yeah.
and so we get you registered. I think it might be
Yeah.
a good trip for you.
Excellent conversation.
Don't let anybody from Pembroke Pines know.
The education part seems to be low hanging fruit.
It is.
We were talking just before the meeting began. I was in Rhode Island in a community, an island community, and they spend an enormous amount of energy with real focus on education.
Yeah.
And part of it includes the premise, which cuts against sort of retail psychology a bit, but just desiring less. Giving rise to premise that you will be able to discard less, because you'll need less. Change of behavior.
That's the hard part.
It's hard.
But you know, we look at Europe and people always use Europe as an example for this, like for recycling. But it's because they take it serious.
Yeah.
And it's been years of education and trying to reuse some of these plastic bottles that, you can just, if you have, water filtration system, just keep on using the same water bottle, and it does take a mindset change in order to get there, but I think we have to begin somewhere. We're behind the curve on this, but we gotta, and it saves us governments, it saves us local taxpayers, it saves us a boatload of money. We can get this done, but
Even so.
Political will, too.
70%. I think it's in Sweden that's #1 in the world. It's one of the Nordic countries, and the best that any country has been able to do is reach 70%.
that zero is hypocritical, I think.
There's no-
Oh, they reach 51%, but 49% is waste energy.
I think one of the things accessibility wise and how we can move that culture a little bit into more recycling, more like zero waste in a sense. I know there's a lot of movement to refill stores. There's one on Oakland Park in Fort Lauderdale. There's one in Miami called Verde Market that I frequent. And that's when you take, your own containers and you refill it, but that's not normal. And it can be normal. Whole Foods sometimes has it, things like that. So like looking within our communities, what are those businesses that are doing this? Highlighting them within our social media accounts, like things like that, that we can market these different ways of living that are more sustainable. And making sure that we're educating the public that that is an option, because a lot of people just don't understand that it's an option.
Back to education.
Yeah.
I still think the garbage fairy is.
I don't know, my last thought, remember a few years ago, there was a presentation on waste to energy technology that was,
Joe Kilsheimer.
I'm thinking of
Or-
specifically the Air Force guy who talked about a device that was able to be loaded on a C-130 to
Yeah, but
reduce the burn pits.
You can't bring that up to scale.
That's the question.
I mean, Miami-Dade, then they have 5 million tons a year, we have 4 million tons a year. That's
That's
very
not
small.
scalable. Yes, sir.
I was going to say, if we're done at one more topic.
Okay,
Did we vote on
we haven't voted
We haven't
yet.
voted.
We have a motion second. Is your topic?
Yeah, no.
Related?
No.
Let's deal with this item.
Yes.
Okay, we have a motion. It's seconded on this agreement. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We have,
And my apologies, but I have to leave. I have to leave force retreat today.
well, we are so over quorum.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Well, we will, but I'd like to hear. these undergoing slides.
It's just because this is probably both the shortest and the best attended meeting we've had. And there may be a relationship between the two, but wanted to just quickly discuss the topics for the next two joint the conferences. I know that the SFRPC is having conference
September 11th.
September 11th, that's focusing on transit-oriented development. And we need to start, make sure everybody understands how important that is, although, Tri-Rail and the Coastal Link are the best examples, and I'm not sure that either of them are going to be around for very long based on funding, or that Tri-Rail will be around that long, we don't know, and whether or not Coastal Link ever gets set up. But that's just SFRPC. Have we had any discussions, and if not, since have so many people here, about what topics we'd like to submit for a joint conference with PCRPC?
Good, Chair. We've had conversation in the past about topics, but I'm always looking for topics to suggest to the Treasure Coast Regional Planning Council. And maybe, I don't know, we had our one conference on solid waste, and we had another conference on recycling. I don't know if the urgency of the solid waste management issue might have another conference on that looks perhaps more at technologies, I don't know, but I'm welcome any ideas. We had talked also about water, the funding for water infrastructure as a possible topic, based on the work that we've done in the past, but we're open to ideas. And then I'm gonna have to look and speak with my colleague Tom Lanahan to see about the timing of the conference, because typically we would like to have done our Regional Planning Council South Florida conference in May or early June at the latest, but the schedules have been very difficult, and the commissioners, we all go on break on different schedules. And it's summertime, so that's why we pushed it to September. But that also means that we probably need to push the regional 7-county conference a little later, just because to have a regional conference in September and not in October, everybody will quit. So and that would be a problem. So we'll just be looking for a date, but I really encourage you, if you have ideas, and I can look up the summary that I've distributed in the past that talks about all the different issues we have discussed as a board and also as a joint.
Something that has seemed to be a major issue that the legislature is paying some attention to this year, but that they can't fix because it's insoluble, is the condominium issue. And that affects all of us, right? Because you got to do something to ensure safety. On the other hand, when you have the condos that have not put any money aside for 30 years and whose buildings are currently falling apart, and I've seen many of them, something has to happen, and insurance rates are through the roof. And that's, a lot of people are blaming the legislature when it's really insurance rates that are frequently killing, but that might be a reasonable one. And one other, when we were talking about the recycling, by the way, Senator and Maria, Jim, we at our last county commission meeting, not yesterday, but the last one, I passed an ordinance that came out of the SFRPC conference on recycling of batteries. And so, if you haven't seen that, Dave may want to take a look at that because we've now passed one.
We have shared that already with, Anisha, with Dr. The solid waste management director. That was one of the things that, Mr. Kelleher sent over after our lunch conversation, so that's been shared now with Miami-Dade and Palm Beach County as well. I would also take this opportunity to mention that the Department of Emergency Management, you may recall that we, the council staff, the local emergency planning committees, and I was up at a meeting, the State Emergency Response Commission. Long story short, the BEM and those, and the people involved in that are looking exactly at this issue about lithium batteries. And so I've already shared with them your ordinance and offered the regional planning councils as well as the directors of solid waste management as partners to them as the conversation moves forward. Because, for them, it's a real safety hazard to the personnel. Because even like the little batteries, you can blow up a
Fire
garbage truck.
garbage trucks, flaming garbage trucks. But back to, so I would suggest this one potential topic, the whole condo issue, which would be easy to find speakers on.
Yeah, and if I may on that, I agree, that it's just one of the issues. It's not just a coastal community issue.
No.
It really is an inland issue as well, because I'm seeing it, I've been dealing with this issue for many, many years. And in my district, as it relates to the board members and associations and the lack of decorum and what all these, but then now when you add these mandated reserve requirements on older buildings as well, and I don't disagree with you, Senator, on the fact that we have to have some type of balance as it relates to safety. But what burden are we putting on folks? And now what's happening in Miami-Dade County, what's happening within my district, that the value of these condos, no one wants to touch these condos.
Yeah.
And their value is slowly dropping, and who's waiting to purchase these condo units or buildings are the big developers.
Mhm.
And that's just me, seeing what's happening. I'm not saying this is actually quantifiable or not, but it seems like this is what the unintended consequences of the legislature, the burden that they put on the condo unit owners, not so much in the association. So I would honestly agree. I think that will be an issue I would love to tackle at the next meeting, and something that happens up and down the whole Treasure Coast and it does, the whole coast.
Somebody, anybody online want to see a hand raised?
Yes, thank you so much. Good morning, everyone. This is Doris Acosta. I'm a commissioner here in Northview Village. Thank you all for the opportunity to even be part of this meeting. I definitely agree with the conversation as far as what else can we add on as a burden for the current condo owners. I myself live in a tiny building, in a 1971 building here on the water. And I could tell you the number one issue we face in many of these condominiums is it's more than the assessments, more than the construction restrictions and requirements, are really the lack of protections that owners have with their own condo board members. The fact that they can rule and decide for an entire community, and that they lead with fear, they lead with, personal bandenas instead of thinking of the building as a whole, as a creature in itself. I think that is the biggest danger we face as a community. I myself live in a tiny building with only 12 residents, and you would think we will have a better handle on our building, but we don't. It only takes, we have 5 board members, from which 4 of them are retirees. They have been living in the building I've been in that building for 20 years myself, so I'm not even a new owner. But when it comes to making decisions, they're not thinking of a budget as what does the building need. They're looking at the budget as what can I pay monthly? And that is what has been destroying really the ability for buildings to stay resilient, because if people are not willing to invest in the buildings, and let me tell you right now, banks are giving amazing loan opportunities to buildings. The loan opportunities are there, the credit lines are there, but people are not taking advantage of it. And board members like myself find myself that outvoted and not consider whether, my opinion is valid or not. And a lot of people are saying this to me as a commissioner. They come to me and say, Doris, I'm worried we're gonna lose our buildings because of the board members. A, they have a reason they want to sell the building themselves, or B, they want to save themselves money and they're not thinking about long-term repercussions for not maintaining their buildings. So I think that, if we can start helping people regain power of these condominiums. And what happens with the new reports that we're receiving is that they're very mixed signals. I hear buildings that receive very strong reports that tell them to do things, and buildings like mine that were very lenient in their reports, telling us that our roof that is already 25 years old has another 28 years of life, which it was outrageous for us to even hear. So just to keep in mind that if we can give more power to homeowners and give less power to condo boards over the building itself, sometimes it could be something to consider. Thank you so much.
Thank you for your comments. Senator?
Thank you. Couple things. First of all, what the Doris, Commissioner Acosta has been discussing is a separate but closely related issue with the issue of condo and homeowner association governance. And that is such a new issue that we were discussing that when I was in the legislature. And remember, I left in 2008. So there was a whole bunch of that we discussed right around 2000. The issue, but I'm just saying that shows why this is such a maybe a ripe topic for a joint conference. You have on the one hand the governance issues, and then on the other hand you have the affordability issues. On the affordability issues, one of the problems that I have is trying to be a little more empathetic to condos that I remember, because I was elected to the legislature in 1988 when most of you were in diapers, and not usually. But
I was in junior high, I wasn't that bad.
Yeah. And I remember I was representing one of my cities was Hallandale. And I remember going to, all of the condos there and say, you've got to stop waiving your reserves every year. And they would tell me, Sonny, I'm 79 years old. I don't buy green bananas, and I don't care what's going to happen in 10 years. Let my children or grandchildren worry about it because they'll own the condo then. And it is difficult for me to say that the people that were waiving their assessments for 30 or 40 years and letting their building deteriorate should be treated the same way as associations that were paying their assessments on a regular basis. And if they were, after Champlain Towers, I appointed and chaired a committee that held 27 hours of hearing. It was the best study commission in the state because it had elected officials, it had condo owners, it had engineers, it had realtors, etc. Senator Bradley, who's wonderful, told me she listened to every hour of our hearings on the safety component before she wrote her legislation. And if you maintain, what we learned is these condos can last a really long time if they're properly maintained. But if you skip waterproofing and go with painting instead because it's $5 a gallon cheaper, or you're supposed to have it painted every 6 years and you have it painted every 15 years and the water seeps in, it's hard for me to have as much sympathy for those unit owners. And the last issue I wanted to say on that, on governance, remember, Commissioner Acosta, Champlain Towers, when it fell, the prior board, which was voted out, had voted to make immediate repairs. And they were voted out by the unit owners because of that, because all of the unit owners were saying, oh, they want 6 million, that's ridiculous. My son-in-law's an engineer, he says they can do it for $1.37. Slight exaggeration.
No, that happens.
They were voted out because they wanted to make the repairs, that you have to be careful. Governance is a multi-edged sword. And last thing, Senator and Commissioner, maybe the worst thing in the world, when I was in the legislature, I had passed a bill, and I'm working on one again now, to make it, well, originally, when I was in the legislature, was to make it easier for condos to sell themselves. Now I'm working in Broward to let them rebuild. I lived at the Olympus condominium in Hallandale, 1,050 units. You could not get 1,050 affirmative votes for 3 bags of gold and diamonds. It's just impossible to get that, 100% affirmative vote with 1,050 units. And you're right, a lot of these condos are being worth less and less. But if they could be sold, you could give the unit owners a good chunk of money to buy someplace else. And if they can't be sold, their units will continue to deteriorate until they get nothing. And so I think that one of the solutions, and I'm not going to discuss it now, there's problems with the Supreme Court. We changed the law, there's ways around it, but the legislature will have to do that. But and Senator Garcia and I don't know anything about the legislative process. But
Right now it's very different.
it is so different now. But that's why maybe that's something that should be discussed. And just from what I'm hearing, this may be the best topic for a joint conference.
I think so too.
And these are the homes that are now affordable housing, which is another thing that we're missing with these communities, is that we are the buildings that are affordable housing, especially in my community where we're having all brand new, ultra luxury buildings happening. The average doctor and attorney cannot even afford these units. So my building is one of those buildings that needs to be preserved and maintained so that we have regular families able to move into our communities, work in our communities, serve the community. So that's another reason why, protecting them and allowing the buildings to really obtain loans and to be able to fix themselves. It's given the community powers that are, right now they're just, I don't know. Again, I think that you're absolutely right. It's a great topic to have a conversation. I can talk about this all day. So just wanted to mention about affordable housing, which is another problem we're having. Thank you.
Practical ramification that occurs to me is the financeability and marketability as affected by code violation liens. And whether in the discussion that we presumably will be having, we have a little critical analysis about whether that methodology could be replaced by something that still ensured compliance, but didn't so choke financial underwriting.
I do a lot of code enforcement work in my legal practice, and almost every city will reduce their code liens by 90%. And if you're selling the property for redevelopment, most will go more than 90% for a condo or something like that. So it's not as big an issue. It looks like it is, but most cities will waive those. If the condo said, yes, we have to sell our property or we need to refinance our property so that we can get this, will you remove the code liens? Most cities will say, we're going to charge you our actual cost for the
Like
code
administrative
inspection,
fees and things
which,
like that.
might be 2-3%, and then they'll waive the rest.
On governance, maybe just a placeholder thought for inclusion for later planning, the role of the ombudsman and whether that's lip service or effective or potentially effective.
It's lip service.
It is lip service, but what do you do? And I suppose the last thing that occurs to me is the 80% approval. My impression is that has resulted in bulk sales more than had been the case in the past.
That was my bill originally. I passed that, they repealed it, then they passed it again. There's a problem. 80% makes it a lot easier, but most property owners have figured out, first of all, you're going to get 10 or 15% that aren't going to vote. What it is it's 80% yes, with no more than 5% voting no. And those, if there's 16 units at Commissioner Acosta's, did you say 16 or 12? 12 units?
Well,
Okay, if there's 12 units, that means one person could block the sale. And what happens is that one person, or if it's 50 units, maybe it's, 2 or 3, they say, well, good, sign up everybody else. And then come to me, because I want double or triple or quadruple what everybody else is getting. And if you don't do that, then I'm not gonna sell, and I'm gonna block your $20 million building unless you give me triple what you're giving everybody else.
That sounds like tariff negotiations.
I have seen it happen many times.
Yeah.
So there is a way around that. My bill also required judicial approval. And I think if we can get judicial approval and increase it to say 80% yes, and judicial approval, but eliminate the 5% veto, as long as it's got judicial. We can talk more.
So we've had a fertile conversation about a topic for the joint togetherness. One other that, real quick, for consideration as a maybe placeholder. This came from the Miami-Dade presentation at our last joint meeting. And I'll just summarize it in terms of the tension between water quality in the bay and stormwater management technology, the engineering solutions, they collide. And it's a tough problem, and that might be something that we might want to
That
revisit.
was a water quality conversation.
I don't know if that's for 7 county.
It's,
Well, it's not just the bay, right? It's all the
Oh,
different
okay.
water bodies. I think that bigger issues, the challenge with the infrastructure.
thank you for introducing.
Yes.
So we have some preparation to do, and including
Mhm.
picking a date. Next, why don't I open this up for public comment, consistent with our protocol and procedures? Sir?
Mr. Chair, if you would, I'm Jim Albritton, council member from Southwest Ranches. I want to brag a little bit about Southwest Ranches.
Fine person.
There was talk of education for recycle, reuse, refurbish. We were able to start last year an advisory board, brand new advisory board to the town, with 4 of the advisory board members went through an extensive class, 6-month class, 3 times a week, 4 hours a day, and then they had to take the exam at the end. And they are working with waste management and newsletter from town, getting the word out, recycle, reuse, refurbish. Waste management made stickers for our garbage cans that tell you what to put in and what not to put in. And the board is also organizing, I think we've had 6 so far, 10 residents at a time to visit the facility, waste management facility, to see what happens to your recycle, reuse, refurbish place. It is amazing what they're doing. The new plant will be absolutely more automated than what's there now. But if you ever have that chance to go out to that site to see, I would highly recommend it. But our town is working as hard as we can to educate the people. There'll never be no zero waste. I understand that, but our residents are starting to pick up on it. Our residents are actually asking for the cans, asking for the stickers to what puts on them. So I'm very proud to say that Southwest Ranches, we're trying to lead by example, and I'm proud to be there. Thank you.
That's very laudable, and thank you for sharing that.
I have a question. So one of the issues that has come up before in our recycling conference and also in our recent conversation with the waste management directors is that one of the reasons Palm Beach County is so successful in their recycling effort, outside of the waste energy plant, which gives them a big boost, is that they have dual bins for recycling. They segregate at the house. And I'm wondering if Southwest Ranches, is your recycling all thrown into one can, or do you guys separate paper from glass, aluminum at the curb?
Currently, we just have one can. With the new facility, with waste management, we're looking at maybe being able to break that down. But right now, we're really making sure that none of the stuff that goes into that blue can is contaminated.
Well,
You know,
that's the, yeah,
really.
exactly, that's the point.
Right,
There's a lot of
right.
contamination to recycling.
Those signs that they've made, that they're laminated signs, stick right on your cans. At our farmer's market, we have a big sign behind the cans telling people, and you'd be surprised, you walk up and they see that sign, they stop, they look at what they have. Our students from the high school are there volunteering hours so they can get their scholarship funds, telling people and educating people on
That's
what they
great.
can and can't do. So we're working at it, working as best we can.
Who organize that, is it 6-month course and the classes?
I will get you that information. My wife was there 4 hours a day, 3 days a week. And she had to pass the exam and she was freaking out that she had to pass the exam, but it is an extensive course. And it's given by a group locally in Florida, I think up around the Orlando, Ocala area somewhere.
Okay,
It's really a great course
I
to
would
take.
like to know.
Yeah,
Yeah, through the chair, if you could share it with me, I can share
Yeah,
it with.
that's-
Yeah, that would be great.
Please do that.
That'd be all right?
yes.
I remember the discussion we had about the robotic technology to assist with recycling.
Yes.
To deal with a lot efficiently, but we couldn't deal with food.
Yes,
That's the
Food
real problem.
contamination is a real problem. Thank you for sharing.
thank you.
Plastics.
Okay, public comments still open. Anybody else? Anybody online? Anybody present? Close public comments. Anything that you'd like to report? Isabel?
Yes, I would like to report, I'm trying to find the email here, so I say it properly. I'd like to report that it seems that for the time being, the legislation that was filed 1264 and 1125 in the House that would do many things, including repealing the Florida statutes. The Florida Regional Planning Council's from Florida statute appears now, to have reached as far as it's gonna go, and it's not expected as it's time to pass. Of course, as the senators knows, it's not over until the hanky drops, and then, even then, I was saying, keep throwing holy water on it just to make sure. So,
A lot of metaphors
yeah,
there.
that's it. So we're very hopeful, and we need to thank, there's a bunch of organizations that came forward to assist with this, including some private sector partners. So we're just cautiously optimistic. I'd be interested in thinking what you senators think about the session as it moves forward, but it seems that for this year, we're hopefully optimistic. That's
We're good on that, but they're abolishing local government
there's so many bad.
because if
Yeah.
right now, the speaker wants to reduce sales tax to 5.25%. Our budget people told us that between revenue sharing and direct funding, that would cost us about 130 million a year. While the governor wants to eliminate property taxes and defund the police. I refer to that as the defund the police bill. Because most local governments spend more than half their money on first responders. And my great fear is that they'll end up compromising and do both. You know, start on a reduced property taxes and again, you can do this, but that's only if you believe in the services area.
Cities will be reduced to holding garage sales to liquidate.
There will be no they'll have cities, but they'll have no money or add counties either. Senator?
Yeah, there's no doubt that tax relief is always helpful to the constituents and to our residents, right? I think what's happening in the legislature right now, there's a stalemate. And between both the House and the Senate, they still have not been able to agree on whether property taxes or sales taxes and what the number is. So I guess based on our experience, I've never seen a legislature like this.
This is
This is the first time I've seen everyone going after each other. And the number of bills that have
Senate
passed.
made a counter offer yesterday. Did you see that?
Yeah, but they're
Still
way out.
only $1 billion.
So they, what's happened is, and I asked today before I was talking to someone up there, there's only been a handful of bills that have passed. So a lot of bills have died, yes. I would agree with you on that, on this one, on that one. So I think as it relates to some of these bills, I think that we should be relatively okay. And I just hope that the legislature figures out that if they are going to do a property tax issue, understand that the monies have to come from somewhere. It just cannot be a complete elimination of. The service.
The governor was
So-
very plain. He wants to eliminate property taxes and not replace it with anything.
Well,
He's defunding the police.
I wouldn't say defunding the police, but I understand where you're coming from. You're on one side and I'm on one side now. So, but the reality is on the same side that we are is to make sure that we come out okay, that local governments are protected and that we stop taking power away from the governments. So I'm with you on that 100%.
In your mouth, to the legislature.
We are.
I think the threat of the RPCs being negated. Caused a little self-reflection, at least for me, and I came to realize despite the legislative neutering some years ago, we actually do important work. And I'm happy to survive and continue to do important work.
Absolutely.
Colleagues, anybody have anything to add? Anything to report?
I wish I should mention one thing. I showed you at the front end that Chair Lincoln was planning to be, presiding over the meeting, but she came very ill and lost her voice and it just felt terrible. So Chair Kaplan is nice enough to step in.
Having had experience. How about FDOT? Anything to report? District 6?
I have nothing to report for District 6.
Thank you for participating. District 4? No? DEP? Anything?
Nothing to report?
Thank you. Water Management District, anything?
Nothing to report.
Okay, thank you. I think with that, we have upcoming meetings that are scheduled in the agenda.
Yes, and if I could share,
Yes,
our next meeting is going to be held at the Miami-Dade TPO. So I would very much like to work with you, Senator, to find out what issues that you think you'd like to make sure are profiled at that meeting, and also be contacting Director Coupley, who's hosting us again. And I hope you all will be there. It's always one of our favorite meetings.
yes. If there's anything else, if not,
Move to adjourn.
move to adjourn. Second, we are. Thank you, guys. And thank you, Elizabeth.
Oh,